Welcome everybody to the Graveyards of Arkham official Q&A Zoom special edition with the cast and crew of Graveyards of Arkham. And those of you who backed us on Kickstarter have an invite to join us. And some of you are in chat with us now, and some of you are watching this on YouTube. So quickly, we're going to go through, because I think in most cases, if you're watching this, you probably know the majority of the people in this call, but some of them you might only know by name and you've never seen before. So let's start just really quickly. Tell us who you are, what you did on Graveyards, and then I'll pass to the next person, starting with, I don't know, Mark Meer.
Hello, I'm Mark Meer, and I was the keeper of Arcane lore on Graveyards of Arkham. And it was my great pleasure to work with all of these fine folks.
Okay. Josephine McAdam.
Hi, that's my name, Josephine McAdam, and I played Vic Mason on Graveyards of Arkham.
Patrick Logan.
I'm Patrick Logan. I played Dr. Archibald Desmond on Graveyards of Arkham.
Mm-hmm. Lucia Vesprilli.
I'm Lucia. I played Theodore Holt on Graveyards of Arkham, and I tried not to go too insane.
Darren Ormandy.
Yes, I'm Darren. I'm the co-writer of Graveyards with Belinda.
Belinda Cornish.
I am Belinda Cornish. That is my name. And I am the co-writer of Graveyards of Arkham with Darren. And I also, last minute, played Goody Fowler in Graveyards of Arkham.
In Graveyards, not in real life. No, that would be a whole different podcast. Jake Michels.
I'm Jake Michels, and I was the director of Graveyards of Arkham, and I tried to not go insane.
Okay, excellent. Cool. Well, look, I just wanted to get this off the bat, because some people will have some questions about this, but we want to clear this up real quick. So for Darren and Belinda, what was the original concept for Graveyards, and how did it develop? Because obviously you were both the writing team on Bookshops of Arkham as well. We being Chaosium reached out to you saying we wanted to do something new and fresh. So what was the concept, and how did you go from script to screen? Keep that within 30 to 40 seconds and we should be good, So joking, please just go.
I think Darren can speak more probably to the concept of like how we kind of launched off with Graveyards of Arkham itself. I can speak to the god. Darren, do you want to speak to the Graveyard sort of kind of initial
the process there? It was a bit like Bookshops of Arkham in the sense that, to be honest, we had a title before we had a game, because with Bookshops of Arkham, we were literally brainstorming good ideas, and then Bookshops of Arkham seemed like a great idea. For a title, it seemed full of promise. There was lots of images and ideas came out from that title, but it hadn't really coalesced into a game until we started to turn it into one. And it was the same really with Graveyards of Arkham. We just thought it was a really fascinating concept that seemed full of promise. And then from that point, you just sort of go through a process of unpacking what could be done with those different ideas. So in Bookshops, it was like, what is the experience of going to a bookshop? What are bookshops like? Where are bookshops? They're in old churches. They're in strange, weird buildings. Some of them got a really strange, bizarre feeling. Some of them are like labyrinths, So we kind of took the real world and then used that as a starting point to create a fantastical eldritch reimagining of those things. And the same, I think, was true with Graveyards, of taking things like these big municipal cemeteries, these small paupers cemeteries, forgotten graveyards maybe being built over or hidden, the various necropolis and things like that. So there was very much that idea about how we could investigate, and beyond that, of course, about death. Not only the kind of rituals around death, that's why I think a funeral takes place so strongly in the first episode, where we keep flashing backwards and forwards, and it turns out that it's sadly poor old Wallace Phillips's funeral. We wanted to have that kind of funereal feel to it. Yeah, the marvelous Andrew Lehman sadly departed in the game as Wallace Phillips, and so we just did that, and then kind of unpacked. Belinda's just an absolute inspirational source of so many different references, and started to talk to me about things like psychopomps and things like that. The lace wings came about because we were looking at the idea of psychopomps, but we'd also obviously gone down this very Stepford Wives idea about the women in Arkham And then we literally started looking at how caterpillars become butterflies. And the lacewing caterpillar is extremely aggressive, whereas the butterfly is very peaceable. And so it was one of the things we looked at. And Belinda said, lacewings, that's what the group are called, you know. So we just sort of started pulling in as much as we could from the real world, and as I say, using it as an inspirational point. So over to Belinda and her.
I just wanted to jump in on that. Just that the sort of the idea of, when a bunch of disparate ideas happen and you kind of allow them to build, suddenly you start to find the connections between them when they're right. And I had this idea for. I was genuinely super inspired by the Aztec goddess, it's Papalotl, which is such a cool name. Hey, it's Papalotl.
It's Papalotl.
And she really is this spectacular Aztec death goddess who is the clawed butterfly, the obsidian butterfly. But we didn't actually want to use an Aztec god as a big bad, because that would be terrible. So I sort of took that idea and then we kind of developed it into this other big kind of horrific cuckoo god idea, and which also sort of then leans into this nice idea of butterflies, of transformation. And also I really loved the notion of it being driven by the women of Arkham, and that that it's actually kind of in an odd way, kind of a feminist tale. They get a little misled by this cuckoo god, but at the same time, the intentions are really strong, and the origins of why all this happened are because of what happened around the time of the Salem witch trials. And so it's this sort of twisted feminist tale in a way that sort of brings in this horrific moth god.
And, horrible moth women with messed up tongue things that eat people from a platter as well,
Oopsies, to be fair, they're already dead.
Yeah, sure, it all balances out. Exactly. So we have a somewhat broad question from Miranda. Miranda is wanting to know what the character creation process was like. So this is one that's probably for our three members of the core cast who are here. So if you folks want to talk about what did we do? I mean, I know what we did, but if you folks want to talk about from your perspective what we did for creating your characters to be part of the story, which we did ahead of time.
We had an email first, right, between us all, to kind of throw ideas about what we were thinking of playing, and it started there, and over a few weeks. I'm trying to remember correctly.
I feel like it was maybe a protracted situation. Lucia, sorry.
Yeah, we hopped into a Zoom call together.
Right. Yes.
To kind of get a little bit of the beginning of the story, where Mark was very vague about the situation, and then was also going, am I allowed to say this? Am I allowed to tell them this first? For a good, I think we were on the call for maybe an hour, just kind of going back and forth. And then after we had a little bit of an idea, I remember I checked in with everybody on the cast to make sure we were okay with certain sensitive material that might go on in a backstory. And then I sent a really long email with bullet points to Mark and Darren and Belinda, I think. And I was just like, here's my idea. Is this allowed?
And it was.
Yeah.
So on that, so I do have some slightly more specific questions. So for Patrick, I do think a lot of us were maybe expecting you to don a similar personality to like what you did in bookshops with the mob enforcer Sykes. But instead, you came up with this lovable nerd with a dark past. So what what interested you in playing like that kind of more intellectually focused character, I suppose?
Partly it was playing Mickey Sykes in the previous game. The main focus of that, though, was whenever I was invited to join the Arkham team, so to speak, once again, I really wanted to delve into something that was happening during the time period. And this is happening post the Great War. And aspects of the Great War that don't get talked a lot about are the support staff in that, i.e., doctors, nurses, essentially the spine keeping everyone fighting constantly on the front lines, and the just repetitive nature of it, the slog nature of it, where you repair someone, send them back out again, or they just die on the bed, put them out, and then put someone back in, almost like an assembly line process of it. And it takes a strong will and a strong mind to be able to sit there, deal with death on a daily basis, and just move forward. And when you're dealing with something like Call of Cthulhu, the idea of that omnipresent psychic kind of psychological threat bearing down on you was something that I feel moves in with the very slog nature of the Great War. So rather than it being a soldier, which is what Mickey Sykes was, I went with a doctor because that's another aspect of essentially the same problem that they're facing. And medicine during that period of time is fascinating, really. It's the advent of plastic surgery. You're dealing with a lot of the advent of certain forms of like incredibly early antibiotics. You're also kind of like, you're dealing with the first, what's the word?
Euthanizing zombies.
Yes, so always euthanizing zombies, always. Prostheses, that sort of thing. It's the early 1900s are an advent for it's the foundation for a lot of technology that would come later on, and medicine was no different. I just found the topic fascinating, and that's where Archibald came from.
So we have a couple of questions that are about the sort of the production. So I think this might be a good time for just quickly get Jake to clarify some stuff. So Jake, when most people think of a director, they usually picture like a guy in one of those tall lawn chairs holding up a camera to his eye, you know? So for the audience's edification, can you explain a bit about what a director does, but how that job might differ with an improv-heavy production like Graveyards of Arkham?
Well, thankfully, I come from an improv-heavy background, but as the director for these, you kind of stay out of it a little bit. A lot of our guidance happens off camera and talking about pacing, usually with something like this that is heavily written, but also heavily improvised, which is a conundrum. We have to do a lot more talking with the writers. I feel like Belinda and I talked through so much throughout the process, and because we had to, but also that was the nature of it during the production. There was only so much we could talk about in pre-production because you have to be on your toes constantly when it's filming because the players are making choices, and even if the story is going where it's supposed to, it might have gone a different way to get there.
Right, go on.
I was just saying, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, no. I was going to hopefully lead into this question because both Miranda and Dustin have some questions about the costumes that we're wearing. So they said the costumes were amazing on the show. And Dustin said, "What was the process behind everyone's wardrobe choices?" So, yeah. Jake, could you talk a little bit about what the behind the scenes process of that looks like? And then the follow up question for all the cast is, did everybody have a favorite piece that they had that they wore? So we'll get to that in a moment. So, Jake,
very nice. Well, yeah, there's actually not too much. We had planned to have a costumer for this for sure, because it's a lot of times, sometimes, especially on other RPG shows, people bring their own costumes because so many of these theater kids that play these games already have an impressive wardrobe. But we hired a wonderful woman named Alicia Silverstein, and she had an assistant named Joshua, and they were amazing. Cervera, I believe was his last name, and they were their sense of time and design is just phenomenal. I think now actually players remind me, you guys gave them descriptions of what you wanted to wear or the style of your character, and then they made choices around that, and then we tried several options between each of you, as I recall, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we all sent various things, but they had multiple options on day one. That's
what's so cool is they had multiple distinct options. It wasn't just 3 hats that looked similar with different shades. It was like a lot of different looks. I mean, I'll let you guys take it over from here. Like what you guys thought when you first saw that compared to what you had told them.
It was incredible. I don't know. So
you especially,
you all look pretty great. Let's face it.
Yeah.
I was like, I want a full suit that fits me. I'm a short person. Please give me options. And they did that. They had accessories for it and cool ties and everything. Yeah, it was really, really cool. Everything that they provided us, and they were just like, they thought about every little aspect. I feel like from the suspenders. The suspenders were like, also period. Like they were like, no, don't just bring whatever suspenders. We need ones that button in, and like,
yes,
it was just, the attention to detail was,
and also the fact that you got
cool.
you got to show your layers was really great. I thought, like, the fact that you had less of a jacket and stuff, and that we got to see all that,
Yeah, everyone was really patient with me, especially I have to give it to can you remind me the name of our sound designer or sound operator?
Anthony.
It was Anthony.
Scott was Scott.
Scott. Yeah, so it was Scott. Yeah, it was so patient because I was like, I'm gonna change my costume every day. I'm gonna shed a layer every single day. And he's putting microphones on us, which you usually have to place on a costume. And once you figure out that sweet spot once, you never have to worry about it again. And I was like, no jacket. Is gone after the first one. And then no vest, no suspenders going. I'm going to loosen the tie. You're hiding it in the tie. The tie's not going to last. Like, it was so patient and so nice about it. I just wanted to show off all the costume. But I really liked my tie. If we're talking about specific aspects, it had little blood drops on it. If you look really closely, it had like raining blood drops. So cool.
Ooh,
Lucia,
like
stop me if I'm wrong, but I believe you contributed either the entirety or a good portion of Theodore's costume yourself. Are you one of the theater kids that Jake was talking about?
Well, I haven't been on too many like in-person productions before, but I had the same sort of fear about things not fitting me. Josephine probably had, because I'm a very small sort of person, and so I told our costumer, I was like, I can bring stuff in case things don't fit me. But then when I got there, actually everything that both Alicia and Josh had pulled, they were like, oh, okay, this fits or this doesn't fit, so we'll adjust it. We were like making tape and pins like on the fly. So actually at the end of it, I think the only thing that I brought that I ended up wearing was my locket on my coat. And my favorite piece was the huge chap things that I wore. They were super heavy, and I was like telling around set. Yeah. I was telling everybody a good time. I was like, I'm so sorry about your floors. I'm messing them up, but they looked so cool.
They were so cool.
I will say,
it was like a weighted blanket on your lap.
Yeah.
There really does need to be hats off to the costume team, and obviously what Lucia came up with as well. Just for context, my fiance and I about 6 months ago went to go see a Bell Shakespeare production of Macbeth here in Melbourne. And it wasn't until intermission that we were looking through the program, we were like, oh, this is supposed to be like set like it's Macbeth, but they're supposed to have dressed it like it's set just after the Great War. But we couldn't tell because the costumes were nowhere near period accurate. And that was just the complete opposite of what we got. So sorry if I threw the Bell Shakespeare Company under the bus then. Speaking of Shakespeare, Mark, you've been far too polite and quiet this whole time. As a keeper, when you're working with such a richly written prose and deeply woven narrative that Belinda and Darren put together, how do you go about keeping the story on track while also giving the players and their characters the time in the spotlight?
Well, I was very fortunate in that I was working with Darren and Belinda, and their story was very clear to me, at least, and I was able to, get the eagle's eye view of that during the creation process because I live with Belinda. She is my wife, and They also did build in moments where the players, because we knew that we had this cast and interactions between themselves wasn't going to be a problem at all. Sometimes, and several times, all I had to do was, now I will just set you up in a location, and now I will sit back for a given amount of time while you just role play with each other. And that was always very entertaining to watch. So yeah, it was, that part of it was very easy for me.
So we had a couple of keeper-specific questions from Lyndon. The first you may have partially already answered, which was for your process, how do you prep? And do you have any kind of ritual right before the game, after a game, or how do you unwind? And, anecdotally, I seem to recall stories of you going back to the hotel with Belinda and doing note-taking and prep and stuff until all hours of the night. Yeah. Do you have any quiet ritual or anything like that to help you prep?
Well, yeah, let's take it in order. So the prep for the game, of course, was reading the I'll say it right now, massive amount of material that Belinda and Darren had provided, and the players and the audience didn't get to see half of what they had put together. There were encounters that just didn't happen. You took one path or another. Of course, as a keeper, you have to prep for all those possibilities. So you have to go over everything. And there was a lot of background information that didn't necessarily come out in play, but it was good for me to know. So I had to familiarize myself with all the characters and whatnot. It's a lot of reading, really. It's studying. As far as any ritual, I think my pre-game ritual and my relax after ritual are probably the same. It's a cigarette out in the parking lot outside of Good Time Society. That's what it was this time.
And I need to mention this because this still blows me away. So our day one shoot time was like a 12 or 13 hour day, because the first day we had to get there early for everyone to do costumes and makeup for the first time, and then we finished up. And afterwards, I think we were prepping to take a cab back to the hotel. And as we're getting ready to leave, like 13 hours after we got there, Mark comes up to me and says, "Brian, do you know where the bathroom is?" Because you had not used the bathroom all day because you were so dedicated to what was going on there. I was like, "What are you? What
that first day, I didn't actually have time. I was like, "Oh, I haven't actually used the bathroom yet. So where is it in this building?"
It's like a feat. I don't know how you managed that.
Where are the cameras? Am I being punked right now? Like, this Mark is actually a vampire. Turns out
it was a Constitution roll for sure. But as you mentioned, yes, because of course things change during the game and the actions that the players take affect how things are going to play out. Belinda and I were going back to the hotel and usually spending at least a couple of hours working on the next day's game, and then getting up, 2 hours early before we had to be at the studio to do further prep so that the next day's game session would be all set.
And I also pipe in here briefly just to say that also because we had Darren on support on all the Google Docs in New Zealand. So for the few hours that we slept at night, Darren was busy creating content as well. So by the time we got up the next morning, there would be a bunch of new content for us to review at like 5 a.m.
Yes. Yes, that was what getting up in the morning was for. It was like, okay, and the Google Docs there's a bunch of additions overnight, so let's incorporate all of that. So essentially we would wrap, we would grab some takeout, take it back to the hotel, eat while we worked, fall asleep, get up, work, and then go back to the studio.
It was a good time. We have a question from Stefan. Now, the question is actually addressed to the cast, but in the answering of this question, we will reveal that this question actually applies to everybody on this call. And the question is, did the cast get to enjoy the cake?
I got to eat it on camera. I think I'm the only one who ate it on camera, but I think most people had a taste at least.
Yeah, we all tasted. You can't help yourself.
No, it was.
I didn't.
What?
I'm scared.
You never tried the cake, did you?
I didn't.
I was scared.
I was.
Maybe it's a double blind and it's not cake, is what you're thinking?
Well, okay. For some context, like behind the scenes, we wrapped that episode and we were all like, oh, okay, now we can interact with the cake because we're not rolling anymore. And then I don't remember who it was came out and was like, "Do you like the pus additions?" And I said,
"That was me."
I said, "No, actually, I don't like that," and I didn't try it.
It was very realistic looking. And,
so
I
initially knew it was food because to be very clear, there wasn't just smoke and mirrors on that episode where Mark asked everyone to close their eyes. The cast literally had not seen the cake, and Jake could probably talk a little bit about the creation of the cake in a moment. But I'd only seen it in the green room, knowing that it had to be in the fridge because it was real food. And I actually thought it was just mincemeat. Like I thought it was just raw mince. So I was like, oh, like, you know, so I thought it was, we can't actually eat this.
That would smell so awful.
Well, I mean, if you keep it cool, it'd be fine. Patrick, I want to ask you though, Patrick, do you remember what you thought it was when it first came out? Because you told us this afterwards. Because remember, from your where you were seated, you couldn't quite exactly tell that it was a.
No, I was at an angle where I couldn't even tell what it was.
Yeah.
So it was brought out, and I was like, "Ooh." But
remember, it looked like a fig Newton. You thought?
Yes, it looked like a gigantic fig Newton, and I just thought, "Well, this isn't that bad." It's like there's a hand there. And it's like, I don't know what the hand's doing there, but
it's very funny to go back and watch that episode and watching Patrick's reaction, knowing that he's thinking, it just looks like a big biscuit with some fig in it. Like, what's that?
So these things somehow have the power to make cookies larger than they normally are.
Yeah, I thought, we're not needed here after all. Okay.
Yeah. So Jake, did you want to just talk a little bit about the creation of the cake? Because I believe it was Belinda and Darren had sent you some notes about, here's a cool thing we would like to do. What do you think?
Yeah.
And that was a production thing for Good Time Society. So.
Yeah. My wife, who actually does production design, took on that particular task, as a matter of fact. So my house was like a horror kitchen for a few days. And my text messages between her, like before she dressed it up, were just like just torsos. and tiny torsos too, because she would do mock-ups, but they were like on like a saucer, right? So I have a bunch of little tiny corpse pots and stuff. It's like that. Brian, I'll send you a couple of the photos of working in process afterwards, so you guys can post them. But it was pretty hilarious, and like we had a lot of self-doubt about how this would work, because it did look really good, really small. But then we're like, when we scale this up to human size, what's it going to look like? And then I think it was a male. It was supposed to be a male body, right? But we had a female torso initially, so we had to do some reverse padding, I guess is what it would be.
We just did a bit of squishing some stuff down, and we applied some grapes.
That's exactly right. We applied some grapes.
The grapes hid many sins, and I
have to say, no idea.
The tattoo on the hand did the trick. I think that was the
I think I'm probably the one who ate the most of it, because I ate it on camera, and then I also ate some after, and then I ate some of the excess gore that was just in a bowl.
To be clear, we fed Mark and gave him plenty of water. He could have eaten other food. This was a choice.
He's like, I'm not using the bathroom, but I'm just mainlining this cake.
It was really good, because the gory bits, like the stuff that Brian was talking about that just looked like raw minced beef, that was like Rice Krispies with red color in them.
Yes.
And the taste, maybe it was just the color that, psychologically made me think that, but I really thought it tasted like red velvet cake.
Yeah.
Kind of chocolatey and red.
There might have been velvet in there, actually, if I recall.
Ooh,
I'm not sure.
So the thing was, we wrapped shooting on that episode. We wrapped it up, and I came out and said we should reshoot the Mark saying goodbye, his outro, and then you should start eating the cake at the end.
Yeah.
So when you watch that episode, that is Mark's first time eating the cake, and his immediate reaction is to reach back and get some more. So that's why he goes back for seconds straight away. So no, that's sincere adoration for the cake. All right, slight pivot. Dustin asks, so it says, one of my favorite moments was when everyone was asked to give up something important. There was so much emotion during this part, and Dustin would like to know, what was everyone's favorite moment from this show? So let's see if we can keep this to like just a moment, and I'd like to ask everybody. So let's start with Josephine. Do you have a favorite moment?
A moment? A moment?
A moment.
Oh my gosh, there's so many that I'd like. Okay, if I'm just gonna pick out a moment, I honestly, in like episode 1, where I get to I'm questioning one of the I just want to get to do detective stuff. And I'm like full sanity. And I haven't lost the plot yet. And so I'm just questioning, and I'm able to catch out whoever we were talking to at the Daughters of Grace, when she mentions that, like, knowing that Anna Lund is missing or whatever, and that, like, she hadn't mentioned it yet out loud. Like, that was like a really fun, we never said that.
Never said anything about the poison. Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed it.
Patrick, what was your favorite moment?
This is actually fairly easy. My favorite moment was when we were in the graveyard in the last episode, getting everything together. That was, I feel, the heaviest kind of role play part of it, beyond everybody giving something up. It was a time for everybody to have, like, let their guard down and just let everyone have kind of one last hurrah before we went to battle the moth women, so to speak. And it was nice. I like that kind of close character interaction.
Mm-hmm. Lucia, what was your favorite moment?
There's so many.
The pussy cake, obviously.
Yeah. I think I really liked when we first got to the docks, and then Betty had that fight, and Ray Giotti made a reappearance, and I kept looking over at Patrick Logan to be like, that's the guy. Patrick Logan was not looking at me whatsoever. So I was sitting there like, I have the Easter egg, and I feel like I'm just enjoying that by myself currently.
That I was quite pleased with that Easter egg when Belinda and Darren put that in. For those who don't know, in Bookshops of Arkham, the party had a lot of trouble with a security guard named Ray Giotti, who they failed every roll that they persuasion, charm, attacking him physically, and they were all quite good at the things that they were trying to do, but for whatever reason, Ray Giotti was like on just an immovable object, and it was fairly early in the game, so it was quite funny how much they spent on this normal human security guard. And of course, we know what happened to Ray in Bookshop. So it was kind of fun to do like a little prequel of, before he was a security guard at a hospital, Ray did bare knuckle boxing. And I guess that's probably why he quit doing it, was after Betty turned his jaw into paste was it 7 points of damage with a punch?
Yeah. I watched the TikTok over and over again. It's definitely 7. Sorry, just a brief aside. We're about halfway through. So again, if you joined a bit later, you missed it at the start, or you're also trying to navigate the Zoom interface, if you have a question you'd like to ask, there's the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Open that up and you can type your question there, and hopefully we'll get to it. Darren, what was your favorite moment?
I may have just said it, actually, with the Ray Giotti being knocked out by Betty. That was just absolutely brilliant. It's so funny. Remember when Belinda and I were writing that bit, and we just said there'd be a bare knuckle fighter, and then that realization that we could make him the dude who was in Bookshops was just very, very funny. And so the outcome, it's one of those times when you just go, you wouldn't write something as brilliant as that. I don't think you'd like, this is so perfect that it gets taken out in one punch after all of the things that happened in the previous game. So, beyond that, I would probably say Belinda's first appearance as Mother Fowler was, I found it really chilling, and I've actually been face to face with Belinda as a witch before, in a LARP game, where Belinda was a witch and I was a witch hunter. So I'd seen Belinda bring her witch game before, but there was something uniquely chilling about it. And knowing the context of how quickly everything was done and the amount of work that Belinda was doing as well. That was. There are various stand-up moments, but that's the one I'm going to put up.
I want to piggyback off that, because that was going to be my moment too.
Okay. Sorry, Jake.
No. I'm glad there's two of us talking about it. It's great, especially you also nailed it, because when her hand comes up over the side, and production-wise, Josephine and Nora knew that she was there, but there was the jump from them, the scared, the like uncertain, and also the little bit of like, this is fun look inside of them, and like that was exactly what we want out of this. And I also didn't know what to expect from Belinda, and she stepped in such a great way in both her roles, and it was just amazing.
Incredible.
Belinda, what was your favorite moment?
Thanks, guys. Now I feel great about myself.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, you guys. No, it was a real treat to get to played those roles. And to get to play with this cast, my God, like what a bunch of just, you're all so remarkable. I have to, can I just say one tiny little side note on springboarding off Darren's Witch Hunter before I say my favorite moment, and I will be brief, which is that in that LARP where Darren was playing a witch hunter, he walked to, I was an imprisoned witch, and he walked towards me carrying a lit candle and said, "Hold out your hand, my child." And I had to, and he winked at me. And I didn't know at that moment whether that meant I'm going to put this candle out on your hand, whether it meant I'm going to put this candle out before I genuinely was like, "Darren, what are you doing here?" He did put the candle out first. That is what he meant. But it was just such a dangerous wink that I was like, But
that is how we became friends.
That is how we became friends. No, I think there were most of my favorite moments in this were all around the extraordinary performances from the cast, your extraordinary, generous, hugely vulnerable, also incredibly intelligent responses to everything. And there were a number of standout lines that just blew me away, which of course I can't remember them all now. But the one that I do remember really, really clearly is Lucia saying to Pippa Franklin, and it's actually going to choke me up because it choked me up on set, when she said, "I may not be a daughter of grace, but I am a woman of honor." It was so beautiful. It was so beautiful. I just loved it.
Mark, did you have a favorite moment?
Well, speaking of the cast's amazing performances and reactions to the events of the game, I think my favorite was probably the dreams in the witch house and just how everyone reacted to those dreams, which I should mention were essentially being written on site in the next room by Belinda live, essentially, and they were just showing up in my Google document. So having met the characters and seeing what they were going through, Belinda was incorporating their experiences, and those dreams were just sort of coming up. It was, and again, the way that everyone reacted to the dreams that she had written for them was just very honest and really, really committed.
My favorite moment, if I had to pick one, just to lighten it up a bit, was Belinda and I were in the green room where Good Time Society had set up a monitor so we could watch what was happening on set while they were recording. And it was Paula Deming as Pippa Franklin, who in the scene where she is introduced, and I believe it might be Josephine's character who says, "Are you happy?" And Paula Deming doesn't miss a beat, just says, "I'm smiling and laughing a lot, aren't I?" And that was funny. I was just like, that's good. Everyone's going to love this character, which actually leads into one of the questions we received, again from Stefan, saying, how deep was the hashtag must save Pippa vibe in the group? I think it's all safe to say we all wanted to save Pippa, but we're also playing Call of Cthulhu. Unless anyone else would like to out themselves as somebody who wanted Pippa to die in the moment they met her.
No. Well, and we all love Paula. Paula's incredible. And so it's like, we can't let anything happen to her.
Yeah. Exactly.
That was actually one of the best things about having embodied NPCs being played by someone else other than me, other than the keeper. Because, if I'd been playing them, it would have just been me doing a voice. But because you had, both in Andrew's case and in Paula's case, them coming in and making these characters so likable, and you of course don't want anything to happen to them, and then bad things happen to both of them. It upped the stakes in a great way, I thought.
Here's a fun little digression from Evil Ted. Evil Ted wants to know if any of the cast and crew present play role-playing games for fun. And if so, what are your favorites? And when you answer this, you can choose to acknowledge that, I work for Chaosium or not, but that's totally up to you. Well,
as mentioned, We were playing Call of Cthulhu and doing Call of Cthulhu LARPs, and that's how Belinda and I met Darren for the first time. So yes, Call of Cthulhu, most definitely. Other games published by other companies. Let's address the elephant in the room.
They're all equally
I play
great.
Dungeons and Dragons. Sure,
Yeah.
and all kinds of RPGs. Like going back to the 80s, I loved the original Marvel superheroes role-playing game. I had like long campaigns of that lasted for years. GURPS Supers, all GURPS games really. And more recently, I've really enjoyed games like 10 Candles and Alice is Missing, and especially games that tend to favor the role play aspect of it, and games that sometimes have a narrative give and take between the game master and the players. So yes, I play a lot of role-playing games.
Okay, and look, I just to skip over the preamble. Can anyone raise your hand if you don't play role-playing games for fun? I'm pretty sure everybody does. Yeah.
And that's zero. Yeah.
Second half of the question. Just to give me a one game answer, and there's no judgment. You can say whatever you'd like. What is your favorite role-playing game to play for fun, Lucia?
Oh, you're starting with me. Okay.
Sorry, you're the first one on the thing for me, so if I go in or out.
Oh, you're totally fair. I don't know. I think I would currently, right now, I've been playing a lot of Alice is Missing because it's a really easy role-playing game for friends to get into, especially ones who aren't used to role-playing. So probably that right now.
That's great. Yeah, from our friend at Hunters Entertainment. It's a great game. Darren.
I'm just starting to get prepped on Master of Nyarlathotep, actually. So yeah, it is called to run it as a tabletop here in New Zealand with various people I work with. But to throw another one out there, Honey Heist.
Oh.
I've got teenage daughters. and a lot of them want to come over and do role-playing nights. And I go, I've got a game for you. And for boozy friends that want to have a great laugh, Honey Heist. Really good fun. So,
Patrick Logan, do you have a favorite?
I'm like Mark. I also dabble with the labyrinths and lizards tabletop playing. I play Dungeons and Dragons. I design campaigns all the time. I'm running a campaign right now, actually, dealing more with like thievery and heists as opposed to just monster hunting or dungeon delving. Picking up a lot of old lore and kind of putting that out. It's a pastime of mine. There's not a day that goes by that I don't work on some campaign that I'm running for a group of friends.
Oh, very cool. Josephine.
I know you said to keep this brief, but
so I hope Evil Ted is understanding that we're not a bunch of casuals.
Yeah, I love all game systems like pretty equally, honestly, because I love jumping into new like rule sets and new games and just like finding a way to tell a story within that rule set. And I feel like it's all for fun because because I'm an actor, but for me, playing tabletop has always been for fun. And even in the things that I get paid for to do this professionally, I don't take jobs that I don't think I'll have fun in as well. When it comes to tabletop, I like made that rule for myself because I never wanted to get to the end of a job and not still love tabletop gaming. And so that's always been a hard, fast rule. So like every show I do, I have fun in. And then only recently, because I'm moving soon, have these like been coming to a close, but I had like 4 home games going at one time because I just love playing these games and I love exploring new characters and I love playing at home for fun with friends and testing out characters for shows that way. Little like soft test, but I don't know, like there's Call of Cthulhu, there's Mothership, there's I just got one called The Wild Sea that I really want to explore that looks so cool. You like ride over forests with saw blades on a boat. Like there's so many out there and they're also great. Blades in the Dark. Yeah.
Jake?
I could go on forever.
Yeah, shout out to Mothership. Good call, Josephine. I am currently in the background prepping something for Shadowrun 2nd edition from like 1992. Mainly because I know the system from when I was a teenager, but also I like what the 90s thought the future will be. That's a fun life to live.
Linda?
I'm a Call of Cthulhu gal, just straight up.
The memo.
You've NPC'd for me in a variety of other systems.
It's true. I have, and I have had a very good time doing it. I think I like the clarity of the Call of Cthulhu rule set, and I don't know. I don't know if Graveyards and Bookshops maybe tells you this about me, but I like that psychological torture. And I love that. I like I sound twisted. But I just do really enjoy that the other people like me, like Darren, who like to play Call of Cthulhu, tend to be willing to just throw their characters to the wolves. Just like, yes, there's a wild abandon with playing Call of Cthulhu, which is just so sheerly joyful to me. It's great.
And I think also Cthulhu is, just very quickly adding on to that, I think it's such a good game for storytellers. I find whenever I'm doing Cthulhu, just the opportunities that the environment and the rules throw up, you find yourself as a keeper just adding things that you just would not have thought of without being actually in the moment there. There's so many bursts of inspiration come through that just twist the story or twist the pressure, or just take things in such an unexpected direction. So it's quite a rush, I think. So that's why it's on my list.
Yeah, I've been playing role-playing games since I was 14. You can see my background, the shelving there. That's all role-playing games. And I've my fun little deep lore thing that's been going on Twitter recently is Tell us a piece of your lore. My favorite piece of lore is that I've never actually played Dungeons and Dragons. So really? Now I should say I've played a.
You're avoiding it at this point, though.
But I've never actually played Dungeons and Dragons. Anyway,
Brian,
no.
truly?
Well, Brian, I got a surprise for you?
Yep.
You're walking down a hallway. There's a door in front of you. There's an orc. I
don't even own any
chest.
D20s, Mark. What are we doing?
This is like Whamageddon, but with D&D for Brian. We're gonna get him.
No, I'm aware Josephine has to leave a bit early in a couple of minutes, but we did get one question which was not addressed to you, but I feel like was very Josephine coded. And the question was, what was it like portraying characters with such a wonderfully low insanity burn?
Oh, yeah. Okay. It's great. It was by design. I was like,
you started with how much sanity on Vic, by the way? 35?
30 something. Yeah. Which was, again, I made my character in a hotel lobby in London while I was traveling, and I flew in the night before, and I was thinking I rolled all the stats, and I was like, well, obviously I'm going to put the lowest one into sanity because this is a mini series. We got 6 episodes. I want to go insane. So it's just a lot of fun to play with. And, I don't know what I'm going to encounter, but I can kind of guess that there's probably going to be a lot of sanity rolls in there. And I just think it's really fun to watch, especially someone as put together. I wanted to put together a detective who knows how to do what their job is, very on top of things, and watch that sort of fall apart at the seams. Yeah.
It really took me by surprise on the first day when I saw how low your starting sanity was. I was just, oh no. That's one of the reasons why Mr. Sleet stayed wrapped up. It was just you can't afford to lose. Even if you losing a point here or two, that's going to be enough to put you over the edge. So yeah.
Sorry, I just remembered that reminded me because I was distracted before when we were talking about our favorite moments, and I remembered the Paula Denning one. I just want to share my second favorite moment. This is just because you mentioned Mr. Sleet, Mark. We talked about how much content had been written masterfully by Darren and Belinda, and we really had to make sure that the story could fit, not just because we're telling a story and playing a game, but because we had shoot days and we had to make sure we filmed 2 things in each one. And I was sitting in the back room with Belinda, and Belinda, I hope you don't mind me mentioning this, but you were getting very anxious because it was the scene where Mr. Sleet shows up for the first time, and Belinda was sitting next to me, and she was very anxious that we weren't going to get through everything else we had to do in this episode. And I said, oh, I'm sure it's going to be okay. Mark is an absolute professional and a stellar keeper. He knows that we've only got so much time. And Belinda just looked at me and said, Brian, he's playing a ghoul. Like, he's going to be there for ages. So it was anyway. That was very funny. We all love.
I
Mr.
will
Sleep.
admit, before I requested it, there was a lot less ghoul activity in in this game, and I sort of and obliged Josephine. Yeah. So I really pushed for more ghoul representation.
Very true, you did. I'd also like to add about Mr. Sleep being just an absolute standout moment. So exciting to see that character come to life, if that's the right word for it. And I think when we had bookshops, the character of Gladys Pinching, aka Abigail Trout, really kind of resonated. And I think Mr. Sleet is the standout for me, not just among the kind of the Mark Meer NPCs, the gallery of people that he portrayed. Just is a real standout character. I'd love to do something more with Mr. Sleet. Now I've seen who Mr. Sleet is.
Well, Mr. Sleet thanks you, and Ingalls, the doorkeeper, is very hurt by that.
No, not Ingalls. So we did have a question. This might be more for Jake, Belinda, and Darren. So the question was about how we went about casting the guest NPCs, because was it a matter of like, how did we choose between them being antagonists, who would be a victim? Was it based on these are the characters we have, or these are the actors we have? So I was hoping you might talk a little bit about what that process was like. And just so you know, from our perspective, we as the exec producers sort of said, well, these are the people we have. And then I suppose, how did you all go about deciding which characters they would play?
I'll start if you like, Belinda. Yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just literally, I just looked them up. I mean, I knew them anyway, but I just thought I'm going to look and see what they do. So we had the idea of the kind of the perky journalist type that we wanted to have as somewhere around the second episode to come into the story. So, and just watching videos of Paula as well, I think we sort of discussed it really. We just looked at the work they did. Likewise, Becca Scott, was absolutely perfect for Eleonora Birch, because he just went.
Well, kind of as soon as, sorry, just hopping in. Yeah, as soon as we knew that as soon as it was confirmed that we were working with Good Time Society, and we had been talking about this sort of female-driven storyline, and that there may be some sort of surreptitious cult leader who doesn't seem like a cult leader, but she really is. We just went, I think Becca should do that. And Becca was quite pleased. As I recall, when we said, can you be a cult leader? She went like this.
She held that pose for like a week. She was so excited.
It was that. And I think with Andrew, he was perfect for Wallace Phillips. And I'm a lifetime member of the H.P. Lovecraft Historical Society. Those guys are kind of heroes of mine, really. And I got the chance to meet them years ago when a film we made was in the Lovecraft Film Festival in Oregon. And so the chance of him being in one of our shows meant an awful lot to me, I have to say. And I just thought, well, so in the case of Andrew, which people might not be aware of, is that he was what we call an embedded NPC. He didn't actually know the story. He knew what happened to his character. We wouldn't sort of play a bit of a nasty move on him like that, but he had an idea and he knew about his backstory with Theodore. But anything pertaining to him needing to know about his character, he was armed with. But he didn't actually know what was happening. And because that way we could get him we could basically have him in the game as much as possible, as a presence in the game. Because otherwise he's more like that character that starts you off on the adventure. If this was a tabletop, he probably wouldn't have been so physically present, but we just thought it's just a tremendous opportunity to get him into the game. And if he doesn't know what's happening, then he can play, and that will bring that energy to it. So really that was, the whole, the list of NPCs we got just seemed to work really well from the outset. It was, we just went, yep, they'll do that. They'll be great for that. And, just finding the most exciting, interesting kind of role that they could do, knowing that Mark is there and will just knock it out of the ballpark for everybody else. It's not like we were worried that if we didn't have, for instance, Holbrook, that Mark wouldn't do a great Holbrook. And the bit where Holbrook turns nasty and actually starts to show the kind of the steel and the viciousness behind the man, again, was really compelling, I thought. But that was obviously with Mark doing a more traditional multi-NPC role-playing. So
Yeah, it's so nice to not only just have different voices like supporting Mark, but also different ways of speaking. Like, I mean, they'll improvise in a way their message, because Mark had worked out with them a little bit of what they need to get across. So did Belinda. And so they knew their objectives a little bit, but you didn't know how they were going to get there. And you didn't know the questions the players were going to ask. And Mark could easily handle that. But it's so nice to have someone else also like steering the ship for a little bit. And yeah, everybody did so great.
Yeah. I mean, I probably wouldn't have improvised that excellent line that Paula did for Pippa, the one we mentioned earlier, of like, well, I'm smiling a lot, aren't I? Well, just having the smile pasted on. Andrew, his Massachusetts accent was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. Way better than anything I could have done.
We have a few questions that are sort of related to this topic. For obvious reasons, like we can't go into deep detail, but the question that I will pose to everybody is, would you come back and do another one of these? You nod or shake your head. Yes,
Absolutely.
Waiting in wings eagerly to find out whether he's got another story to do.
To be clear, I'm sure there's lots of people who want to see more of Arkham series. We want to see more of it too. If and when that time comes, we will be very, very, very loud about it. So you don't have to stress too much. I can't remember if we touched on this recently, but when we in the call, but I remember when we initially had a meeting about doing a follow-up to Bookshops of Arkham. We talked about, we didn't have anything straight to go. We just said, hey, we could do another one of these. What do you think? And we were talking about the naming convention, and it was towards the end of the call, and Mark Meer just leant in and said, oh, could I suggest maybe Graveyards of Arkham? Because, we now know that Mark loves ghouls as well. So that was probably one of the reasons. But that sort of got the ball rolling.
It was, I'll be honest.
I would like, this is by no means a promise that it's happening at all or anytime soon. But I just want to use this opportunity to have my moment like that. So looking at Belinda and Darren, Butchers of Arkham? Yeah? Because that could mean like a bunch of...
Well, we know somebody that makes a really good body cake, so,
Also,
I would like to throw
what door have you opened?
I would like to throw my hat in the ring, so to speak, with Haberdasheries of Arkham.
Well done.
Why not like bakeries or cafes of Arkham, where we just go on a nice little tour?
Tea houses
Lucy,
of
do you want to
Arkham.
have cafes and bakeries ruined for you, like the Fig Newton cake was ruined for you? Like,
yeah.
Well, maybe it would just be nice though.
Yeah, maybe the corpse will be a pie this time.
That I could do.
We do actually.
We could go really meta and do like friendly local gaming stores of Arkham.
We have about 60 seconds left, but we just got a question that would be a really good one to end on before we say goodbye. Lyndon asks, if the series had a director's cut or an alternate ending determined by dice rolls, what would it have been?
Those were rolled naturally, weren't they? Huh. Everything was legit. Yeah, no, we didn't.
No, I think they mean like if we were to choose an alternate ending, like dice, like say, like what if Nora had missed all her attack rolls? What might have happened?
I don't know.
I mean, if there had been some botched rolls of that final thing, Gazanier would have just devoured Arkham for starters.
I thought everybody was going to die. I mean, having written
I thought at least one person was going to die. I at least thought Vic was going to go irreversibly.
Going back. No.
I will give some insider information. Some insider information for all of you. Only I knew this as the game master, but the writers, Belinda and Darren, fully empowered me to just kill all of you at the end. The game could have ended with all of you, even if you succeeded, just a bunch of moths fly out of your mouths as you're, and you're left behind as husks, and those moths get sucked into the vortex. Yeah. So, but I didn't have it in me. I didn't have it in me to just, at the last moment, just go, oh, and by the way, you're all dead.
Especially how you got there, especially with the way that turned out and Nora's roles and stuff like that. Like Darren said earlier, you wouldn't have written that. And that's why it's so good, is because it occurred that way. And that's why we believe it. And that's why it was so fun.
Yeah.
Not trying to avoid the question, but I love that ending.
Mickey Sykes getting a critical at the end of Bookshops of Arkham like, and a whole game of failed rolls, then when it mattered, just doing a critical success,
That's the magic of this. It's part of the magic of it, is just how, the sort of balance between, critical success and fumbles and things like that, and how that leads the story. It's just, I know I'm stating the obvious, but it really is, that's the magic, is it's just like, it's something you couldn't write.
This does take us to the end of our Q&A session. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be on the call, and everybody who is, who's the backers who are in the call, everybody who's watching this now on YouTube. And if you've got this far and you haven't watched Graveyards of Arkham for some reason yet, go back and watch it. And if you have watched Graveyards of Arkham but you haven't watched Bookshops of Arkham, go back and watch that too. So it'll be a good time. So I thought the way we could just end this, and once we do this, we will just wave and say goodbye. I'm going to ask each of you to say one word that if you were to remember Graveyards of Arkham by, what would the word be? And we're going to start with Mark.
Cake.
Patrick.
Ghouls.
Jake.
Torso.
Lucia.
Oh, that's my word. Oh,
Belinda.
It's a word.
Butterfly.
Darren.
Tragedy.
Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
Yeah. Thanks for supporting.